Shh, be quiet. All right, so this is when we're putting a foot on the bottom. This is what I'm talking about, where you just put a little foot that gives it a little something extra on the bottom of your clay bowls or pieces. It makes them look a little bit more professional, even if they don't look too great to begin with. Like if you got them a little off center, it can help make them look more center than they did before.
Do we have to put one on there?
You have to what?
Put one on there?
You don't have to, but this is just in case you want to learn how to do it.
We get extra credit if we do.
No, but they just look nicer, and it's easy to do. It's not really hard at all. So you want to get some clay out of the bucket that's going to be a little bit of a different moisture content than the clay that you're carving out of. It needs to be about leather hard or a little bit softer. I'll let y'all feel it after this so you know what it feels like. But I'm going to take these little bits of clay that I have, and I'm going to just kind of lightly push them down on my bowl. I'm going to push mainly down on the bat, or on the wheel head. You don't need a bat for this. You want to try to make sure you're putting it on as center as possible as well. And there's guidelines on the wheel head that are little rings that help you see if you have it centered on there or not. You don't want to push too much into the clay because it could warp the clay piece, so you want to make sure it's mostly attaching to the wheel head, as I said. All right. So, first thing you're going to do is you're going to wet the bottom of the piece with a sponge. And then you want to come up with your guidelines. And how you're going to do that is you're just going to take a needle tool or any other tool that's sharp. I try to steady my hands as much as possible for this because I have very unsteady hands. And then I just kind of put it into the bottom of the clay. And you see that creates a little line. Do there, and I'm going to do one there. It doesn't matter how thick or the bowl foot is. You can make it a lot thicker if you want. All right, so I'm going to start with a tool that looks like this, one of the rounded carving tools. And it has to be wet as well as the clay so that they slide through each other together without creating too much friction. And you pretty much just start carving. You always start from the outside and go in. And it should come off in ribbons like this. It doesn't want to come out in little, if it's coming out in little pieces, it's too dry. If it's coming out as dust, it's far too dry. So again, I have my guideline. So I know where I should stop at. And how I want my foot, it can be in a lot of different ways. I'm going to put a little edge in here. Looks like I'm making a double foot for this one. We can do that. Again, coming off in ribbons. Remember, I left the bottom of the bowl, the base of the bowl, very thick. Well, not very, but thick enough to where I could do this. Without poking through the bowl, because that's a thing. So again, I'm going to start in the center, and I'm going to go from the outside in. Now, you start with the smallest end first, generally to get my indentation going, and then I use the bigger end. Use the smaller end to kind of get my depth correct. How much I'm going to take off. I might want to stop and check every now and then the thickness of my bowl, the base that I'm carving off, and one way to do that is kind of tap it and listen and hear. That kind of lets you know how thick certain areas are over other ones. You can also kind of lightly press, and if it starts to bend or warp, then you know that it's too thin. And I'm going to use the whole piece. It's coming off in one big ribbon there. Keep it cleaned off as much as possible. Again, like I said, this is an easier part because you're just really carving into what you've already created. And if you've got a bowl that you don't, I mean, like I said, they can it always makes the bowls look a little bit more professional, makes them look nicer. makes it look more impressive, especially if you're going to give them to someone. Because then they're like, oh, that's a nice bowl. Look at that nice foot. Try to make the edge as sharp upside and down as I can. Keep it clear. Take some of the bottom off here. Now the bottom is not going to be completely flat just yet. Just continuing to clean up a little bit. And after I kind of get it to where I want it to be, take the sponge again and just kind of clean up the edges, let the water smooth things back down. And you can pull it off and check your thickness and make sure it looks good, and if not, just kind of keep going. And that's it. Any questions about feet carving? You don't have to do it, but it does look nicer. As I said, these bowls all look much nicer with the foot on them. Versus like my bowl over there that doesn't have one on there. It's right there on that table. A little bitty one. Yes, that one. It doesn't have a foot on it, so it's not as nice looking. Alright. Work on your houses and other things, please.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.